Thanks, Heather. Hello, everyone. My name is Heidi Schroeder, and I'm the Accessibility Coordinator at the Michigan State University Libraries. I've also been working on course material affordability projects and initiatives since about 2012 at the MSU Libraries. So today I'll be talking about growing the Michigan State University or MSU Libraries Affordable Textbook Program. And just a quick note about the presentation. I did a mini presentation at MIALA 2019 after the first year of the Affordable Textbook Program, or ATP. This presentation was accepted for MIALA last year, which, as you all know, was canceled. So while this presentation today will focus on what we did to grow the ATP in the second year, which is 2019-2020, it'll also talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on the third year of the program, which is the current year we're in, 2020-2021. So a little bit of background about the MSU Libraries Affordable Textbook Program. We implemented this program in the fall of 2018 to not only save students money. We all hear quite frequently how expensive it is for students to attend college, and that textbooks and course materials are a big part of that expense. But also we wanted to ensure that students immediately had access to the required materials for their courses. So we started by identifying high enrollment, primarily 100 to 200 level, those entry level courses that had expensive textbooks. And we as a library purchased several copies, so about one for every 150 or 200 students in a course, and put them on MSU Libraries print course reserves. We have allocated $15,000 to $20,000 from our collections budget for this initiative each year. In the first year, we spent about $14,000. In the second year, we spent $16,000. And then in this third year, that spend did go down. We only spent about $7,000. And that's due to the number of carryover titles from past semesters and also COVID. So just to go through a few of the processes and procedures, since I'm sure some of you weren't at the presentation back in 2019, we first have to identify the courses and textbooks for this program. And we do that by contacting the MSU registrar through a course data request to get a list of those high enrollment courses. We also take recommendations from our liaison librarians to find courses that might be a good fit for the program. We identify the textbooks by searching the course catalog through the registrar and by looking through the bookstore, because unfortunately, a lot of times the textbooks and course materials aren't identified in the registrar system like they should be. We purchase mainly from the MSU bookstore. They give us a 10% discount, and also we found they're pretty lenient when it comes to returns or exchanges. So for example, this has happened quite a few times. We'll have purchased an edition of a textbook, and then at the very last minute, the instructor will upgrade to the newest edition. So the bookstore has been really great about letting us exchange for the newer edition. And again, we focused on print because, as many of you probably know, electronic textbooks are pretty much impossible for libraries to purchase most of the time. And so we're simply not able to purchase most electronic textbooks. Another big part of the Affordable Textbook Program is to promote it to students. And the main way we do this is through faculty and departments. So we email faculty and departments once the course has been identified to be included in the program. We also include library liaisons on those emails and then send a separate email to all of our liaisons with a list or a link to the list of courses that will be included that semester. We ask professors and departments to advertise the Affordable Textbook Program and their courses participation in a variety of ways. We provide language for the syllabus. We've included a couple PowerPoint or Google slides to include when they present to class on the first day. And then we also encourage faculty to change the textbook on reserve question in our student information system from no to yes. This is a big way that students learn if their materials are available at the libraries. Some faculty have been great about changing that field from no to yes, others it hasn't been quite as successful. Starting the second semester of this program, we also began requesting visiting these participating courses during the first week of class, if it's an in-person class. Going to these large lectures in the first week is a really great way for the libraries to give a quick 2-minute spiel about the Affordable Textbook Program and to ensure that students know about it and know that their materials are available at the libraries. We've also created a LibGuide, so libguides.lib.msu.edu/textbooks. And this has not only background information about the affordable textbook program, but also lists to all the participating courses for a semester. Especially after the first and second semesters of the program, we really tried to increase the promotion and advertising of this program. We had a big push on our library social media channels. When we hired a communications director, they did a press release about the affordable textbook program, which got picked up by the Lansing State Journal and WKR, so it was great to be featured there. We also were a focus of MSU's Give Green Day. So Give Green Day is a fundraising day at MSU where most colleges and major academic units choose one area to direct fundraising efforts towards. And the affordable textbook program, along with our robust open educational resources program, has been a focus for the library's Give Green Day. We also, of course, want to assess the affordable textbook program, and we do that in a few different ways. We've had a student survey go out. We also put some flyers in the textbooks as they were checked out from our circulation desk. And then we've also, of course, looked at circulation statistics to see how frequently these affordable textbooks have been checked out by students. This program really requires working across a variety of units, both in the libraries and out, which is one of my favorite parts of the project. I get to work with all of my awesome colleagues in the MSU libraries. It means I have to collaborate a lot with administration, our collections unit, circulation, which houses our reserves team, acquisitions, cataloging, copy center, and publishing services, as some of these were sold as loose leafs, and so we would bind them together to prevent not only thefts, but also to make the materials last longer. We did have a few textbooks that came in print, but allowed for an iPad version, so we offered an iPad available for checkout. That required working with our systems and IT office, of course. And then we've also worked with MSU's Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities about accessible e-versions that might be available, because we of course want students with disabilities who may need an alternative format to have access to this program as well. So our procedures and processes did change a little bit during COVID-19. March 2020 was in the middle of the spring 2020 semester. So we pretty much finished that out, even though students weren't coming in and physically checking out the books in the library. We decided to not distribute the survey at the end of the spring 2020 semester, and actually haven't for the remainder of the COVID-19 pandemic. We didn't collect summer 2020 circulation statistics because, again, the library wasn't open and this was a print collection. Luckily, in the fall 2020, through the present, we've been able to provide electronic loans for most of our affordable textbook program titles through MSU Library's controlled digital lending program. This means that books are loaned electronically on a temporary basis, so usually 2 hours, through SharePoint. This is a very locked down version of the text. It's not accessible to assistive technologies, unfortunately, so we have a workaround for accessibility, but it also prevents students from copying and making any changes to the textbooks. But it is at least a way that we were able to provide electronic access during this time. Of course, our desire for ebooks increased even more during the pandemic, but as I've mentioned, most just simply aren't available electronically, and so we've had to do the best we can through our controlled digital lending program. So the next couple slides are going to talk about the participating courses and get into some of the assessment and circulation and usage. So throughout all the semesters since fall of 2018, we have had 263 total courses. So these aren't unique, and that means if Chem 251 has been part of the program every single semester, that was counted one time each semester. It's been counted over and over. That's because sometimes the textbooks have changed, and it's just the way we've tracked usage in this program. In the first year, we had 35 courses included with 41 textbook titles. And you'll see in the second year, that jumped dramatically to 122 courses with 157 textbook titles. It increased a lot for a couple main reasons. Luckily from the first year, a lot of those same titles carried over into the second year. And so we were able to expand our offerings in terms of courses to some higher level courses and to some courses that weren't quite as big as those ones included in the first year, but that still had expensive textbooks. And then in the third year, our numbers have dropped a little bit, but I think given the pandemic, this is something we're still pretty proud of. We've had 104 participating courses with 129 textbook titles. I put a variety of the subject areas that we've covered through the Affordable Textbook Program. And as you'll see on this slide, it's covered pretty much everything from accounting to statistics, to writing, to psychology, economics, and on. So this is a slide that shows total circulation for all of the titles during the various years. In the first year, we had over 1,100 checkouts of the various copies. In the second year, that number jumped dramatically to 3,500 plus checkouts. And then in this third year, it dipped a little bit, but again, that wasn't too big of a surprise at 2,100 checkouts. So we've collected 2 semesters worth of data. We were supposed to have 3, but as I mentioned, we stopped collecting or distributing the student survey when the pandemic hit. So we have 475 total responses out of ? We don't really know. We asked all participating course faculty to distribute the survey to students, but it's clear from the survey data that some courses never received students never received the survey at all because we got 0 responses from that whole course. Of all of the 475 that did respond, 12.6% had used one of the textbooks on reserve. And when we asked why students had used these reserve textbooks, the responses varied, but the top one was that students didn't buy the text because it was too expensive. That was 42% of our respondents. 21% said they didn't buy it because they knew the libraries would have it on reserve. 9% said they didn't think they need the textbook, but then it ended up that they did. 9% said they bought the electronic version or rented the electronic version, but then wanted to use that physical print copy. We had 11% say that they bought their own copy, but when they were on campus and didn't have theirs, they used the reserve copy at the library. And then 3% said that they shared it with a friend or a classmate. Of those students who had used the reserve textbooks, 81% said having the textbook on reserve was either extremely useful or somewhat useful. 61% thought that the checkout period of 2 hours was enough. 23% said no, that it should be longer, and 16% were neutral or didn't know. 22% of the students that had used a reserve textbook checked out the book one time, but the majority of these students, 78%, checked out the book more than one time a semester. So they used it multiple times and was something they really relied on. We had some great feedback in the comments of the survey, so I thought I'd share a little bit of that. I broke it into categories. So of course we had some positives or positive but comments. So I'll read a few here. I love it. It's so nice to not have to spend hundreds of dollars on a book that you may only need a couple of times throughout a semester and just be able to rent it out when you need it at no cost. Another student said it was extremely helpful and I would love it if you guys included more textbooks in the future. And then a similar comment, I wish they had them available for more courses. A lot of comments express students' desire for e-access, which again is really hard for libraries to provide. But online access would be amazing, especially for expensive texts, said one student. And another student simply replied, PDFs all the way. We got quite a few comments on the extreme cost and burden of textbooks on students. So I'll read a couple of those here. The cost of textbooks is ridiculous, especially on top of tuition. The fact that I only get around $10, I'm assuming back, for a book that costs closer to $60 is also awful. This added cost bars people from lower income situations getting the most out of their education due to this. The Affordable Textbook Program is an okay start, but you can only use it at the library and it feels like treating the symptom, not the actual problem. Textbooks are too expensive for the amount students already have to pay to attend MSU. And in addition to that, I don't think students should have to pay for the other supplemental material, web work, Top Hat, etc., on top of textbooks. I thought these two comments were very astute and I think really reflect how students feel about the costs of course materials during their time in higher ed. There were also quite a few comments about our need for more promotion and awareness. One student said, I wish there was more awareness to this program so I could have saved money. And another student said, I wasted my money on a book that I could have checked out from the library because it wasn't communicated enough. So again, we're really trying to increase our efforts in promotion. Unfortunately, some of this does rely on the faculty member or changing that information in the student information system. So we're hoping that these things can improve in the future so that students are really aware when their textbooks, aware of when their textbooks are in reserve at the libraries. So a couple future directions to wrap up. As I mentioned, we're going to continue to promote and advertise this really valuable, well-received program. It has cost us money out of our collections budget, but it's really well used if you go back to those circulation statistics. We're getting a new student information system at MSU. So again, we're hoping that there can be better compliance with alerting students to whether their materials are available at the libraries. With the shift to back to in-person, we're going to be resuming the survey. And then we also want to continue to look for electronic versions or push for it whenever possible. And whenever it's appropriate to discourage bundled text with required publisher online solutions. That's another reason our numbers were a little bit down during COVID. A lot of faculty members switched to required online solutions for homework or other work activities that came bundled with the electronic textbooks that students had to buy, so we couldn't procure that item. And then my colleague, Alex Seddon, is taking over as the new affordable textbook program coordinator at MSU. And I put his email here in case there are questions after this presentation. It'd probably be good to email both of us, and that's seddonal@msu.edu. So I think my time is up. Thanks so much to everyone, and I'm happy to take questions either right now, and I do have my email on the slide as well, and that's hschroed@msu.edu.
Thanks, Heidi. I don't have any questions in the chat yet. So if people have questions that they just want to say out loud, feel free to unmute your mic and go ahead and ask, or you can type them in the chat. I'll give you a little bit of time to start chatting. Looks like Gina has a question.
Heidi, I just wanted to thank you for doing this follow-up. I saw your 2019 one, and we started a program ourselves because of that, and it's been well received, but we need to promote it more. So I took a picture of that screen to share with my coworker, because that is kind of our next step. So I wanted to share with you that it has changed things here for us.
Cool, thanks, Gina. That's really great to hear.
I have one question in the chat. Do you ever need to order additional copies of titles due to high demand and use?
Yes, that's a great question, Fran. You're absolutely right. We have needed to do that and have been able to do that given the budget. We have typically checked circulation statistics at 3 various points in the semester, and it shows us by copy. So if we have 3 copies for a course, we check out the first copy first, and if that one's checked out, the second copy gets checked out. If both are out, then the third gets checked out. So we're able to see the various circulation statistics of the various copies to know, are there times where all of these copies are checked out all at once and quite frequently? And if so, then we've definitely added additional copies.
Okay, I have Julia has her hand up.
Thank you. I don't know how to lower it. I'll do that in a minute. I have a question how this program works with your OER program, how you guys collaborate together, and part of like why are you calling it affordable textbook and not just a textbook reserve program? Because we're not making the textbooks affordable like the OER program is trying to do.
Yeah, so we report up through the same unit right now, and our OER librarian, Regina Gong, and I work together on this. It's been great to see when we identify high enrollment courses when they're using an OER title instead of a textbook. So we're never sad to not include a course because they're using an OER. Yeah, we've used the term affordable. Some other colleges and universities were already using that. It's a good point. I think we're trying to make it affordable to students by them not having to buy it if they choose not to. So I think that's where that came from. But we're kind of in the same, just in the same unit, and cheer each other on because OER isn't always an option depending on the subject matter. So we kind of work in conjunction with each other, but nothing really that formal. Good question.
I just because at our campus, it got confusing that the reserve program was using the affordable and it was confusing the affordable program. One tip is that we found that some publishers, if you call them and ask for a free copy, sometimes they will give you one. So that was news to us and it saved us a little bit of money. So
Cool. Thanks, Julia.
Now, I have